Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have Brenda Williams, who is the founder of Your Coaching Solution, joining us tonight. Very excited about this presentation because it doesn't necessarily have to deal with hearing loss, but it deals with how to develop your effective leadership style, whether it be in your personal life, your relationship, or your career. So welcome, Brenda, and you can go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening.
Brenda, you just need to click. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody this evening. I welcome everyone on the webinar, and it's an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you. I'm excited to get started tonight, and I just want you to all know I take your time very seriously and I value it. So when I do deliver a webinar, it's really important to me that I provide valuable information that people can implement into their lives and their businesses so that they can be more successful. And I like to say, create a life filled with more happiness and success with less stress. So that is my goal, to make sure you walk away with something that you can truly use to have a better life and a more successful business. So I thank you all for joining, and I think I'll go ahead and get started, Nancy.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So for the last 20 years, I've worked in businesses, and I found there was a common thread throughout all of these organizations. And it really focused around relationships and communication. I find that it doesn't matter if it's home with your children, your family, or your loved ones, or all the way to the office where you're working with your employees, whether you're managing them, their coworkers, or you're leading them. Communicating and building strong relationships is critical to a successful life. So I really made that a primary focus of my coaching and what I do. So when I saw that need, I realized in following my passion that a piece of what I did in corporate America focused on coaching individuals and helping them lead more successful lives. And I wanted to help people become inspired to start living their dreams and following their passion and their purpose in life. And as I started my journey, I realized there was a big need for that. A lot of people had fallen asleep at the wheel and weren't truly happy with what they were doing. So I decided to become a coach and help people provide people with tools, techniques, and skill sets that would help them follow their purpose and their passion, build stronger relationships, and stronger leadership skills so that they could live happier, more joyful lives. So when I do my webinars, I really like to make them interactive and engaging so that we can all learn from each other and share our knowledge and some of our areas of expertise. And I also like to gear my presentation towards your particular questions. So I like to have engagement. I ask that you share information, you type in your questions, we're going to do some polls, and I am open to providing details in the presentation that are geared towards your specific needs and your specific challenges in your life. So please work with me. I invite you to get engaged and share some of your thoughts and your questions with me. It'll make it more fun and maybe a little more entertaining as well. So first of all, I'd like to ask, what brought you all here today? And if you could type in some of your answers into the chat box, that would be wonderful. And what would you like to take away? And I'm going to take some notes as I start getting those answers so that I can address them throughout my presentation. So I am looking forward to getting some of that feedback. What brought you here today, and what would you like to take away? So if you can start typing into the chat box, that would be wonderful. And I'll move on, and then the team is going to share some of those with me. So as we go through, we'll take some notes on them, make sure we address them, and I understand who I'm talking to this evening. So I am seeing here, let's see, I'm interested in learning how to maximize my relationships at work and at home. So that's perfect, because that's exactly what I focus on. And gain more confidence in being a leader. So we're going to talk about confidence, relationships, and curiosity about emotional intelligence. Less stress by communicating better. I'm recently retired and want to become more effective in new situations. So in a transitional time, figuring out what's next in life. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the input and the engagement. So I will be addressing that as we move along. I've taken a few notes here. Thank you very much. So here is a handout link. I like to provide this for you so that you have something concrete you can take away. You could use it to write notes if you want to print it out. And there's also a chart in here that's easier to read if you print it out or pull it up on your full screen. I see here I'm also interested in insights about how to help other people accommodate the needs of people with hearing loss in an emotionally intelligent way. Okay. Let me take a note of that. Wonderful. All right, so hopefully you all got the handout link. Sometimes it's easiest just to copy and paste this into your browser and go straight to the handout so that you can have this document. So hopefully you all have been able to grasp that, grab that, and I'll move on. So the agenda of today's webinar is to help you become consciously aware. And emotional intelligence is a big piece of that. And I'm going to talk about the 4 energy blocks that can stand in your way. And I like to say that sometimes these are blind spots and obstacles in our life that we don't really see. We've been one way our whole lives, and we've always acted a certain way. We have certain behaviors and patterns, and there's certain blocks that we have a lot of times we don't even recognize. Once you become aware of them, it can be life-changing. I'm going to talk to you about 7 new choices. And those choices will really relate to some of the things that you just typed into the chat box, and I'll talk to them as we get there. We're going to talk about how to be more engaged and influence and motivate yourself as well as others, and how you can find new energy and increase your performance. So that's a little bit about today's agenda. The link did not copy and paste. Anyone else lose the audio? Hopefully you can all still hear me. And let me go back to the link real quick. It's www. No, still have audio. Anyone else? Can you all hear me, just to make sure? I want to make sure my audio is still playing.
Yes, I can hear you, and Deanna can hear you. So go ahead and continue. I think it's probably on their end.
Okay.
Also, it's not going to copy and paste. They'll just have to write down that link.
Okay, so please write it down. It's yourcoachingsolution.com/leadership-handout. yourcoachingsolution.com/leadership-handout. So let's start with a poll. I want to get a feeling for what you currently know about emotional intelligence before I move into the full-blown explanation. So A, we use the concept at work. B, I've taken an emotional intelligence assessment. Or C, I've heard of it. Or D, I don't know anything. So if we could put the poll up there, that would be wonderful. You can answer the poll by using the drop-down menu. A, we use the concept at work. B, I've taken an emotional intelligence assessment. C, I've heard of it. And D, I don't know anything. So I see some results coming in. Thank you for being engaged. And right now I'm not seeing anybody uses the concept at work. We've got someone who's taken an emotional intelligence assessment. A few people have heard of it. Most of you have. And then a small group, they don't know anything. So we have kind of a mixed group here. Okay, great. That's good to know. So I think you'll all receive some valuable input because I'm going to basically touch upon the workplace and how emotional intelligence shows up as well as at home in your personal lives. So I think that will help tremendously. Yeah, and I do see the answers here. So the majority rules is they've heard of it, and a small percentage do not know anything. Someone's mentioning, read the Daniel Goleman book. Daniel Goleman. Okay, so emotional intelligence is the ability to identify, assess, and control the emotions of oneself, of others, and of groups. And it's amazing when you start paying attention to becoming self-aware, how it can make a difference in your emotional intelligence. You start learning to really discover how you think about certain things, what your trigger points and your hot buttons are. We talked about the 4 energy blocks, which I'll go into in more depth, and that'll give you some insight as to your belief system. So you're aware of how you think in what I like to say, your little box. And that will allow you to see how you're showing up consciously. Because so much happens in our subconscious mind that we're just not aware of. There's a lot of chitter-chatter that we hear on a daily basis. I've heard different numbers, but we have, according to the research, about 60,000 thoughts a day that go through our mind. And so many of them are on automatic pilot, and we're just not aware of. So today it's really about becoming self-aware of how you show up in life. And once you master that, you can focus on how others are showing up. And it helps you communicate more effectively and build those stronger relationships. Some of the benefits become increased productivity, more financial success because you can relate to your clients and your vendors in a more effective way. You build deeper bonds. Your leadership ability increases because you understand the people that you're working with. Or your children. How do you inspire and influence them? By speaking their language and understanding where they're coming from. Being more emotionally intelligent about your blocks and your beliefs. It increases more satisfaction and engagement, and it truly, truly improves the quality and depth of your communication. So there's a lot of great things that happen when you go ahead and you pay attention to your emotional intelligence and you become self-aware. I see I'm having trouble getting the handout, so let me just review that with you one more time real quick. It's yourcoachingsolution.com/leadership-handout for those of you that had not received it or found it. Otherwise, just feel free to email me and I will send it to you after the webinar today. So how would it feel to start creating your life instead of it creating you? What I mean by that is so many times we get stuck in the routine of life. The bills, the chores, the work, the kids. We get so busy and so bogged down, we start letting life happen to us instead of creating the life we want. Today I want to share with you 7 choices that will help you start creating your ideal life and put you in the driver's seat to be in control of your thinking, your emotions, and your actions. And that's what it's all about, being aware of how you think And what are the feelings that are attached to it? It shows up in all areas of our life. And I'll get into more detail of what I mean by that in just a few minutes. So first question. What's the first thing in your life that you'd like to master or change? If you could type into the chat box, that would be wonderful. I see more free time. And earlier we talked about more confidence, stronger relations, mastering emotional intelligence. So I'm jotting down all of these things. So when we get to the 7 choices, we can focus on them. Lower anxiety, career mastery. Great. All right, well, we have some good information here to work on. Less worrying, more energy. Okay, so when I get to the 7 choices, I'm going to share some ideas as to how it can help and support you in these areas, okay? It all comes to our thinking, how we think up here. Thank you for sharing that. So I like to say you are a leader either by choice or by default. These are the formal definitions of leadership: the ability to lead, how you interact with everyone, including yourself, the ability to influence, motivate, and inspire yourself and others. But when I'm talking to a group of people live, they typically think of the leaders as the CEOs in the company, the president of the company. And today I want to talk to you about leading yourself. And once you master leading yourself and the thinking process and the emotional intelligence, others will follow you. And again, your children and the people you work with will start to follow you. So we're setting the foundation here as I move forward into the energy leadership thinking process. And I want you to be aware of the fact that we do create energy from our thoughts, our beliefs, and our emotions. Einstein proved many years ago that we and the world are made up of energy. So I like to say, have you ever had a day you get out of bed and you're in a great mood and everything's going smoothly and you just think life's wonderful and you're excited for your day, and then all of a sudden you get on the freeway and you get stuck in traffic and you're an hour late to work and you miss your first meeting? What starts happening to your thinking, your attitude, the energy that you give off? I've been in a great mood and I'll show up, I'll be standing in line at the grocery store and people will start talking to me. Because when you're putting off that real positive energy, people are attracted to you. I was coaching someone a few weeks back and he was having some big challenges at the office. And he was very stressed out. He also had a lot of anxiety, and he wasn't happy with the boss that he interfaced with. And I said to him, when you show up in the meeting, how do you think that comes across? And he said, I don't think it comes across very good. My attitude is poor. I'm not excited to be there. I have anxiety when I show up, and I know they can feel it in the room. And so I like to say, I'm sure some of you have been in meetings where that person shows up in the room and you're enthusiastic and excited they're there because they're a team player. They always have great ideas. They're fun to work with. And they give off an energy that brings the room up. But have you ever worked with people that bring the room down? That kind of drain the energy? That's what I'm referring to here. To start being consciously aware of how you show up. And how do you relate to those people that show up in a negative energy? How can you learn to influence and inspire them to pull them out of that pattern so that you can create more collaborative teams at work and more love and synergy in your family? So our realities are created based on our perceptions. And if we were in person, I have these big, funny, glittery glasses I put on. You don't get the same effect on a webinar. But it's always funny to see how everybody relates to that. in the room. Some people will laugh and joke and think, oh, that's so much fun. Where did she get those? And other people will look at me like I'm absolutely crazy. Like, where did they find this lady? Why is she here? But the reason I do that is to get people to realize we create our own reality through our perceptions, how we view the world, the stories we've created. And it may or may not be how the world really is, but through those perceptions we create our energy level and the world around us, and then we support evidence to gather evidence to support our own realities. So once we believe something's true, we start looking for it. So you'll know what I mean as we go forward. But just think about, what are your realities? What are your perceptions about what's right or wrong, good or bad, how you judge others, how you think others should show up in the world? When you start looking at the world through different perceptions and different viewpoints, the world will start to change, and so will your reality. So here is one of the biggest points of today's presentation, the 4 energy blocks. I'm going to start with the limiting beliefs. And as I do this, I'd like to invite you to start thinking about what your limiting beliefs are. And if you can share some of them with me, that would be great. So something that you accept about life, about yourself, or about your world that limits you in some way is a limiting belief. So what is the limiting belief that you've created in your life? Many years ago, they believed we would never run a 4-minute mile. It took that one special person to think outside of the box, to put that belief aside and say it is possible to run a 4-minute mile, and let me show you how. They believed we couldn't take man to the moon, and look what happened. Okay, Sharon just shared, I'm hearing impaired, and I think it affects my ability to find work. So that's a belief she's created. So what happens when she goes in for a job interview? What is the belief that's behind walking in the door? Sometimes we can create our own reality through our beliefs. So I encourage you to start thinking and journaling around what your beliefs are. Okay, I'm being told my volume might be too high. Let me see if I can adjust it just a bit, and if that'll help. Is that better? I hope I'm coming in clearer. Okay, so let's talk about assumptions. An assumption is an expectation that because something's happened in the past, it'll happen again. And so we can create our own realities through our assumptions. We can keep from doing things in our lives because of these beliefs and assumptions. So I assume, let me share one with you. I assume my husband will always be a half an hour late for everything we do. And usually that comes to fruition. So I've learned to work around it. However, I plan accordingly. I'm already planning for him to be a half an hour late. We make assumptions in our conversations and in our business meetings around the board tables. And if we don't get clarity and truly understand where other people are coming from, our assumptions can stand in the way of us truly understanding what's going on. So what are the assumptions that you're making in your life? Where does it show up in your conversations? Interpretations is the next one. An opinion or a judgment that you create about an event, a situation, a person, or an experience and believe it to be true. And I see this happening all the time. I will be sitting around at a party, at a pool with my friends doing a book club. I do a lot of book clubs. And it's amazing to me how people really live in their box, how they see the world, how they think people should be, and how people should act. So it is interesting when you start paying attention to what are the interpretations that I'm making about people. Sometimes people can make interpretations, he doesn't like me. I had a client that managed a team of people. One day she was walking by the lunchroom and she heard people giggling just as she walked by. And she thought they were laughing at her. And it truly affected her relationship, how she showed up in the office, how she felt about the job. And she started acting differently by interpreting what was happening that day. Much later, she made friends with the people in the office, and she found out they were laughing at an off-color joke they didn't want her to hear. And her interpretation had steered her in the wrong direction with the wrong attitude and the wrong beliefs for several months at this new job. And it really affected her performance because she wasn't excited to be there. She didn't feel like part of the team. And it was something she had created in her own mind. Sometimes people will tell me, my boss thinks I'm incompetent. They interpret that. They don't want to follow orders. My team, they won't listen to what I say. Maybe the team doesn't have clarity or the capability. So today, we're going to talk about different viewpoints and different perceptions that you can start creating. So the first step is to understand your energy blocks. The most powerful one is the gremlin. And you notice here, there's a little cute gremlin on the left, and there's a nasty one on the right. And the reason I do that is because sometimes your gremlin will whisper, and other times it screams and stands in your way from moving forward in life. I call it your inner critic. It's the little voice that says, I'm not good enough. Sometimes it might say, I'm not effective. I can't go after this promotion because I'm not qualified. We talked earlier, I heard in the chat box, I want more confidence. Some people will say, I don't have enough degrees. I don't have enough knowledge. What's it take to create that confidence? I want to have less stress. Think about where these energy blocks are standing in the way of your stress level. I'm transitioning in my life. I'm retiring. What are your beliefs around retiring? And what's the gremlin telling you about retirement? I don't have enough experience. Some people will say I don't deserve success. I was given a presentation a month ago and a woman said, I had passed on 3 promotions in the last year that would have tripled my income because I just didn't think I was good enough. I was capable. And if I was concerned about, let's just say I made it to the top. What would happen then? I'd have to stay there. What would it take to stay there and to continue that success? So I always ask my clients to journal around these energy blocks and start trying to discover where they're coming from. Once you learn about these energy blocks and you start deciding if you want to hold on to these beliefs or shifting your perspective, once you gain more clarity around your conversations and you start looking at the world without opinions or judgment, you start seeing the world from other people's viewpoints and perspectives. And the gremlin, the inner critic, you can totally tame, push it aside, and decide who you want to be and where you want to go in life. And not listening to the fear and all of those things that come into your subconscious mind and stand in your way of moving forward. And so we talked earlier in the chat box about having lower anxiety and more energy and more free time. Sometimes these can stand in the way of that. I'm an entrepreneur. I just started a new business about 1.5 years ago, and I've been working a lot of long hours. And so one of my limiting beliefs that I'm creating is just standing in the way of me having free time off. You have to decide how you want to live your life. Set your hours, set your schedule, create boundaries, determine what's good enough. When am I giving it my all, and that's good enough today. So I pay close attention to these energy blocks, and they really transformed my world. So let's do a quick poll. What do you feel is your biggest block in your life? Your limiting beliefs? A. Your assumptions? B. Your interpretations? C. Or the gremlin, the inner critic, thinking I'm not good enough, I'm not capable enough. I see the polls coming in. Okay, I think we're almost there. Oh, no, we've got some more. People are thinking. Very good. Okay, so on A, we only have a very small percentage of people think it's the limiting beliefs. And the assumptions and the I'm not good enough inner critic are tied. Interpretations falls to the bottom. So close to half of you feel assumptions stand in your way, and the thinking I'm not good enough is a big piece of it, the inner critic. So when I'm working with my clients, I work with them to discover what is that inner critic, that gremlin that keeps getting in their way, and I help them discover why it's there, and then determine if they want to keep it or change that story they've created. It's a story you have created about your life, and it's a story that can be changed to serve you to get more of what you want in life. And talk about career mastery. That was one of the things mentioned earlier. If you did not let the gremlin get in your way, what type of difference would that make in your career? I work with companies to help them build more collaborative, engaged, enthusiastic teams. And what happens inside organizations, that is not coming from the top. People end up clamming up in meetings. They do not want to speak out. They stop taking risks. Maybe somewhere along the line their ideas were squashed, or they had an idea and it didn't turn out so well. So they start letting it stand in their way of moving forward. And they start being quiet and taking a back seat, just kind of showing up in the office. In relationships, I've seen it happen, where people stop communicating. They stop sharing. They stay in relationships they're unhappy in because they're afraid they might be alone. They might not meet someone else. So pay attention to your energy blocks. You can tame these. You can change them. You can learn the skills behind them and start becoming very aware. And that's where your emotional intelligence will kick in. So when I talk about energy leadership, we're talking about a way you consciously decide on how you want to view the world and yourself. It's a choice you make. And today we're going to talk about 7 choices. And I'm going to walk you through the ways that this can truly help you in your life and your business. And I'm going to tie it back to some of the things that you all said earlier. So let me get started. At level 1, it's more of a victim mentality. It's where you can be very sad. Some people get depressed. You start doubting yourself. You get lethargic because you don't want to move forward because you're afraid of what might happen. And that's in the center of the circle. And that's what we call catabolic, negative, draining energy. It keeps you from moving forward in your life and in your relationships. And so as I go through this, I want you to look at the upper left corner. It says core thought. And at the top of the circle, it says core feeling and emotion. And on the far right, your action and the results you get. So when I work with my clients, I do a self-assessment so they get to see how they show up in life when life's going smoothly, and they understand where these levels show up in their life. And then we look at how they act when they're under stress. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter who you are, what level you are, or where you're at in life. When we're under stress, many of us have something in common, and we fall to the lower levels in some shape or fashion. And I'm a coach, and I still struggle with the lower levels at times because life throws us curved balls, and We have to deal with them. But when you start paying attention to these 7 choices that you have, it can make a big difference. So I'm going to explain them real quickly. Think about where they're showing up in your life and your business, and then with the people you interact with, your children, your family, the people you work with. I coach many people, and they tell me I work with a lot of victims and a lot of people at level 2 that are in conflict, anger, and defiance, that are blaming others. You know, the company didn't give me enough information. They didn't give me enough people. You know, we're not going to be successful on this project because. Or our children, you know, they complain about this or that. Sometimes we even complain. And so where is it showing up in your world? When you're at level 1 and 2, it's very negative and draining. You're focused on the problem, not the solution. And it keeps you from moving forward. And this can be like the stock market. We can go up and down just like the stock market and experience all these levels in 5 minutes. And I'll share a quick story with you in a minute. So when you get to level 3, you start looking at the responsibility and the forgiveness. And you start cooperating and you realize, okay, I am responsible for my own emotional intelligence. I am responsible to determine what my energy blocks are and to communicate more effectively. What can I do differently in my relationships? What can I do to lower my anxiety? And you start really looking where you're moving much more into what we call anabolic positive energy. You're moving up the ladder. And so it's a more positive place to be. You stop experiencing a lot of those negative emotions. As you move up, the further up you are, the less of the anxiety, the stress. We talked about the overwhelm, the confidence. All of that starts fading away as you move up the ladder. Concern and compassion and service is level 4. A lot of people that are moms are at level 4. They give to their family and their children. They work. They do the bills, the grocery shopping. They're always taking care of the kids. They're at their games, and at the end of the week, they are wiped out and exhausted, and they have nothing left to give. And a lot of people that operate primarily at level 4, when they get stressed out, they'll turn to level 1, which is the victim. And they start thinking, why am I doing all of this? Nobody appreciates it anyways. And so you start letting it get you down. Now, don't get me wrong, level 4 can be a great place to be. My husband operates at level 4, and he's the most giving, caring man I've ever had in my life, and I absolutely love him for it. But I have to make sure he feels appreciated, and he knows how much I love all those special things he does for me. And then at level 5, you start to have some reconciliation and some peace and acceptance in your life. You start looking, this is my favorite level. I try to stay here more often than not. It's where you start looking at the solution. So what would happen in your life if you focused on the solution instead of the problem? I'll tell you in a minute because I have a quick funny story to share. I'll show you how I went through all of these levels in about 5 minutes and how it made such a different result in my day. At level 6, you're at synthesis, joy, and wisdom, where you start believing we're all connected. You stop judging people. You stop taking things personally. And you start tapping into your intuition. And when you are at level 7, you get in a place of non-judgment, absolute passion and creation. And some of the greatest leaders in the world live at 6 and 7 because they are focused on the win-win, the solution. They believe everybody's connected, and they build teams and lead organizations that are in total synergy, total connection. Everybody's striving for the same goal. And in a family environment, you create love and a bond between everybody in the family and in relationships as well. So where is it showing up in your world? Think of it. You have a thought. What happens when you're angry? Most of us have all been angry at one point in time. When you're angry, you're not focusing on the solution. You're pretty mad, and it stands in your way. And then you get defiant. You're not fixing the problem. So the question is, how long do you want to be angry? Sometimes it's really hard to pull yourself out of it. And other times you can go, I know I have a choice here. I can let it go and move on. Where do I want to be next? So I use these tools on a daily basis to help me work through my challenges and obstacles in life. So a quick funny story. The other day, my AT&T bill, we turned it to an international plan for a trip we went on. And when we came back, I started getting these bills from AT&T, and I asked my husband, what's going on with these bills? And he goes, oh, they made a mistake, I'll call them. I said, you'll get it handled? I can trust you'll take care of it? Yes, dear, yes, dear. So another week or two goes by, and I get another email and phone call from AT&T about the bill being delinquent. Honey, are you going to take care of this? Yes, dear. Have any of you ever had this happen with your partner or your loved one? And then next thing you know, maybe a month and a half have gone by, and I come out of my Pilates class. Nancy's saying yes. I come out of my Pilates class, and my phone's been shut off. Now, I run a business. My phone is extremely important to me, and my husband knew that. I made it very clear. So what level do you think I went to when my phone was cut off? Do you think I automatically jumped to level 6 or 7? I can tell you that's not what happened. I went straight to level 2. I was upset. I thought I had these visions of going to his office and choking him out in front of his entire team. And I started laughing because I'm like, that is not very coach-like. And I should not be at level 2. So then I thought, well, I can't believe he did this. Why did this have to happen? He always does things like this. It's very frustrating and upsetting. And that was the victim. And I said, you know, you have a choice. You can ruin your whole day around this, or you can go ahead and step up to level 5 and look for the solution and the opportunity and not judge and have a little more compassion, get his side of the story, and forgive. And by doing that, it made my day so much more peaceful. The anxiety we talked about earlier, the energy it would have depleted, it would have sucked out of me from the anger I felt. I was going to run off to the AT&T store and fight it out with them. That wouldn't have been pretty either. And I just thought, no, I'm just going to live at level 6 and let him handle it. I'm not going to worry about it. Now, mind you, while I was at level 2, I sent him a text that said, you're a dead man. My cell phone's been cut off. And he told me later he thought I had sent him a joke. I said, no, that's how I felt at the moment. So I tell you this funny story just to kind of get your juices flowing. Like, how often do you experience these levels in your life? And what would it do to your confidence level and your level of building your career mastery if you were always looking for the win-win opportunity and the solution? Where you didn't judge others and you looked at them more compassionately, with more concern and caring. I worked with the same project manager I talked about earlier with the boss he didn't like. And we started working through these levels, and we talked about how we could deal with her in a different way. And so instead of being at level 1 and 2, we started looking at what was his boss like? Why was she who she was? And what could he do to build more of a relationship with her? We have all worked with difficult people in our lives. That's just part of the business world. We're not always going to work with people that are at 6 and 7. So what can we do differently to show up in a light and a fashion where they will respond to us, where we can influence and inspire them to become more, to be a better team player, to help get our projects done? What can we do differently? We look at the solution. We look at the compassion. Where are they coming from? What can I do to help and support them? Things they've done before, we start forgiving. And when you start working at those levels, the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm, all of those negative emotions start to fade away, and you start building stronger relationships, and you start getting some of the things you asked for, more energy. How do you get more energy in your life? You free up some of your time. You have more life balance. How do you get people to, have more emotional intelligence? You encourage them and inspire them to look at life differently, to share some of the information you're learning today. You can teach it to your children, you can teach it to your loved ones, your coworkers, you're in teams at work. If everybody starts operating at this level and becoming more emotionally intelligent, more aware of how they show up, the world will start to change. So just real quickly, this is how people show up. On the left-hand side, it says your energetic profile. This is a very high-level PhD, shows up very high level 3 and 5, and then that's when life's going smoothly. When they're under stress, look where they show up in the bottom right, level 1 and level 2. And so this happens to a lot of us. The question is, how long do you want to stay at level 1 and 2? How productive is that? And is it causing you to have more stress and unhappiness in your life? So that's one of the reasons I give you the handout and encourage you to use it. Start thinking about where this is showing up in your life. And if you want to take the Energy Leadership Assessment, all you have to do is email me. I'm also going to offer a special promotion today where I can coach you individually around these specific levels so it can meet your specific need. All the things you typed in earlier. How can you overcome and become aware of the energy roadblocks, the blind spots, become more aware, start shifting your perspective, and then use the 7 levels of energy to help you on a daily basis with your mindset and your attitude, and start shifting your emotions. So the big question is, do you want to be a victim of your circumstances or create that positive energy that inspires and motivates yourself and others? Most people want to be at the cause of their life, and I hope you all do too. I'm working with a doctor's office right now. She saw my presentation and she said most of the people that come in, 80% of the people that come into her office, the health ramifications around stress or high blood pressure, all of these different things you see here, the adrenaline rushes, the heart rate problems, they have health issues around the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm. So I hope as I've gone through my presentation, you have seen where this could show up in your life and how it could create more confidence if you're operating at the higher levels, if you put some of those energy blocks to rest. I am going to focus on a few things you can do here. Your next steps is an amazing book called Energy Leadership by Bruce Schneider. What I like about that, it's done in a business setting, and so you get to see how that shows up in real life in more detail. And a lot of you, as you read the book, will say, oh, this is where I show up most of the time. This is where Bob at work shows up and Sally at work shows up. And it gives you some real good tips and ideas on how to inspire and influence your team. You can take a personal assessment to get a pulse on where you're at now. I have programs, one-on-one coaching. I do lunch and learns inside organizations, webinars, whatever I can do to help people become more consciously aware with a lot of different topics. So just reach out to me if I can help you and your team or anybody that you know. My gift to you today is 12 weeks of self-discovery and growth, and I would love to be able to add you to that program. A lot of you can go to my website and immediately get registered. You'll start getting tools, tips, techniques, and self-assessments. Each week you'll get one new tip or tool that will help you become more emotionally intelligent and start applying this into your life. It gives you specific details. The next thing is I want to offer a special promotion. For the first 10 people on the webinar that contact me, I'll give you a 30-minute free coaching session. All you have to do is email me, and I will be happy to provide you with a session focused on your specific needs and your specific questions. So I finished up 10 minutes early so I can answer some of your questions in the chat box, and I am very happy to do that. If you'd like to type in some of your questions, we'll go ahead and get started on that.
Thank you, Brenda. That was very interesting, and I look forward to seeing some of the questions. I'm glad people were answering the polls and asking questions throughout. So it was very entertaining, and it's always more fun to have an interactive webinar.
You're welcome,
do you have any questions? While we're waiting for questions to come in, just want to thank Deanna Baker real quick before I forget to do so for providing captions tonight. Thanks, Deanna.
I know there's going to be a few questions out there. Let me go back to a couple we had earlier. Some of the goals is to lower anxiety. So what I do to lower my anxiety when I'm working through this process is I really get a clarity around the situation, and I try to look at it from other viewpoints and other perspectives. I use the 7 levels to help me walk through the process. And when you start looking at things from different viewpoints and thinking outside of your box, it will lower your anxiety, because you start realizing that the situation that you might have turned into a big full-blown problem isn't that big a deal. So that's one of the ways I use the 7 levels to help me with lowering anxiety. Freeing up your time. So how many of you could delegate some of what you do to your children or your partner or your employees so that you could free up some of your time? How do you, okay, here's a question from Anna. How do you suggest talking about this approach with employers or other employees? Well, the wonderful thing is the words emotional intelligence is starting to become more prevalent in the workforce. A lot of companies want to create more engaged, enthusiastic teams. So if you start talking to your company about what it can do to build a collaborative team where everybody gets excited about coming to work, where they give 200%, it reduces turnover, companies start stepping up to the plate and saying, I'm interested in teaching our team how to do this. I want the people in our company to feel appreciated and wanted, and I want the leadership team to be able to develop those types of relationships. And it's really all about doing that in the organization. It's looking at the people that you've looked at in the past as slackers, people that are checked out, with more compassion and empathy. What can you do to help them become more inspired to step up to the plate? And that's usually finding out what's in it for them, what's going on with them, having a heart-to-heart, finding out what's important in their life. What do they want to do in business? Is there another position they might be more excited in? It's making them feel like part of the organization and feel appreciated, respected, helping them with their career path. Give back. I'd like to apply this to anxiety. I'm quick to react in situations. That is a good one. The energy blocks will help you slow down your reaction process. Right now, I started learning my trigger points. I did the self-assessment. I learned my trigger points and my hot buttons. I know what causes me to be impatient, what causes me to get a little upset in certain situations. So I learned a lot about myself. And so once you know what that is that gives you anxiety, you can immediately feel it coming on. You'll assess and go, oh, that's happening again. This is a situation I got to be cautious of. Let me take a step back and analyze this from a different viewpoint, a different perspective. Let me go through these energy blocks and let me see what's really going on here. And you start looking at it from different angles and you start becoming a little analytical about it. Like, how am I showing up? What am I thinking and feeling right now? And you kind of process that before you respond or react to a situation. That makes a big difference. So you don't react. You respond. You make a decision how you want to think, feel, and respond versus react. And that is transformational. Cheryl's asked, how can you get the self-assessment? Email me, and I will be happy to share that with you. I provide the self-assessment. It's part of my coaching practice. And you can go to my website at yourcoachingsolution.com to learn more about the assessment. and the 12 modules of training and education that comes along with the Energy Leadership Program and Assessment. It covers emotional intelligence, becoming a dynamic communicator, a better decision maker. It has 12 different modules that go hand in hand with everything we've talked about today. So just visit my website. That's how you can do it. Or email me directly and I'll be happy to respond. Okay, so I will take one more from what we saw earlier. And we were talking, let's talk about hearing loss for a moment. Those 7 levels of energy come into play, and I know it well. I was very passionate about speaking today because I have hearing loss. And I have been kind of putting it off for quite some time. My first hearing test was about 5 or 6 years ago. And now I'm to the point where I can't hear certain things in meetings or loud restaurants, or even when I'm giving my presentations. I can't hear what people are saying to me in the audience. And trust me, that gives me a lot of level 1 and 2. The frustration behind that is pretty high. So I have a choice. How long do I want to be frustrated? Or do I want to be grateful and thankful that there are hearing aids out there, there's a way to solve my problem, and I can go take care of it? So I've recently had several hearing tests, and I'm going to be getting my first pair of hearing aids. So I've decided not to live at the lower levels about that, not let it stand in my way. Thank God there's tools out there that can help us. And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. So we have one more question I think we have time for, and it says, what is an emotionally intelligent response to a perception of unfair treatment at a previous employer that I'm still angry about? Okay, that's a good question. First of all, I like to say things happen to us in our lives for a reason. And I was coaching someone the other day who was just laid off, actually let go after 41 years of being with a company. So he has a previous employer. And they told him he wasn't living up to their expectations and given the full information they needed, and his attitude and the way he was building relationships. Certain people just weren't happy about working with him. So they put him on a performance plan, which he passed. But then they said, thank you for your services for 41 years and goodbye. So he has a lot of anger around that too. So I started talking to him about what is the lesson learned and the value that could come from that. He wasn't happy in that job to begin with. He was ready to move on and do something more exciting. And after he worked through his anger issues, he realizes he now has a huge opportunity in front of him to work with the people he chooses to work with, to work on the projects he wants to work on, he's going to do consulting work, and he's going to recreate himself. He's going to work in spurts of 3 months at a time and be able to take some time off and enjoy life and spend more time with his family. Sometimes things happen for a reason. So I'm not sure what the unfair treatment was, but there's always a lesson in it. Maybe they were difficult people to work with. But what can you do differently next time to build stronger relationships? What can you learn from that? I tell my people I coach all the time, they're like, I'm going to leave my career because I have a difficult person, a difficult boss, a difficult vendor. I don't like it here. I hear it all the time. We always have difficult people in our lives. How can we learn to better manage those relationships? And I start by saying we have to set boundaries. We have to gain clarity in our conversations. We have to build relationships. We have to connect with people. We have to make it our job to motivate, inspire, and influence others so we can build those bonds and those strong relationships, and so that we get to a point in life where we can deal with all types of people in our life. And this program will help you do that. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your engagement, the questions you typed in, taking part in the polls. It was an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you tonight. And I hope that I'll have the opportunity to coach some of you with your individual challenges, because I truly enjoy doing that. So thank you so much for your time, and you all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks again, Brenda. Since this has been recorded, we will have this posted on our website. It usually takes us a little bit of time to get it captioned and posted, but it will be up there, and it's going to be a very valuable resource to our webinar library. So thank you again very much, Brenda. And everybody take care. Thank you.